My husband asked for a divorce on a Tuesday morning. By Friday night, he was begging me not to leave the house. And the craziest part? He still had no idea whose name was actually on it. For 10 years, I thought love meant patience. Patience during hard seasons. Patience during arguments. Patience when someone you love says cruel things they don't really mean. That's what I kept telling myself anyway, because if I stopped believing that, then I'd have to admit I wasted an entire decade loving someone who slowly turned me into a joke. His name was Ethan, and if you met him for 5 minutes, you'd probably love him too. He was charming in that effortless kind of way, the kind of man who remembered birthdays, tipped waiters generously when people were watching, and somehow made every room laugh without even trying. People admired him. Women flirted with him constantly. Men wanted to be him. My parents adored him. And honestly, so did I. At least in the beginning. When we first met, I was 26 and working 2 freelance design jobs while trying to grow my online business. Ethan was already successful in finance, already making more money than anyone I knew. But back then, he didn't act like it mattered. That's what made me fall for him. He used to bring me coffee during late work nights. He'd sit beside me on the couch and ask about my designs, even when he clearly didn't understand any of it. He used to kiss my forehead every morning before work. Back then, he made me feel safe, seen, important. And maybe that's why it took me so long to notice the change. Because people rarely become cruel overnight. It happens slowly, quietly, like watching a room grow darker 1 inch at a time. The first red flag should have been our 3rd anniversary dinner. We were eating at this expensive rooftop restaurant downtown with some of Ethan's coworkers. Everyone was drinking wine and talking about investments I didn't understand. One of the women asked me what I did for work. Before I could answer, Ethan laughed and said, "She's basically a starving artist with Wi-Fi." Everyone laughed, including me. Because that's what you do when someone embarrasses you in public and you don't want to ruin the mood. But I remember sitting in the bathroom afterward, staring at myself in the mirror wondering why that joke hurt so much. And honestly, things only got worse after that. The comments became more frequent, more personal, more humiliating. If I bought something expensive, Ethan would say, "Well, at least one of us can afford bad decisions." If I talked about my business goals, he'd smile and say, "That's cute." Cute. God, I started hating that word. Because men like Ethan know exactly how to insult you without technically sounding cruel. That's what makes it dangerous. It's subtle enough to make you question yourself. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this really was normal marriage behavior. That's the lie I kept feeding myself. Meanwhile, Ethan's career exploded. Promotions, bonuses, networking events. And the more successful he became, the smaller he started making me feel. The worst part? He only treated me that way around other people. In private, he'd still hold me while we watched movies. Still ask me how my day was. Still kiss my forehead before leaving for work. That version of him confused me. Because how could someone make you feel loved and worthless at the same time? I spent years trying to figure that out. Then came the dinner party, the night everything finally broke. Ethan's company hosted this massive celebration at a luxury hotel downtown after closing some huge investment deal. The place looked ridiculous. Crystal chandeliers, piano music, champagne towers taller than me. I remember standing there feeling completely out of place while everyone around me talked about stock markets and vacation homes in Europe. At one point, Ethan disappeared to talk business with his investors, so I stood near the balcony quietly scrolling through my phone. That's when I overheard 2 women talking nearby. One of them laughed softly and said, "I still can't believe Ethan stayed with someone who contributes basically nothing." My stomach dropped instantly. The other woman replied, "Honestly, he could do way better." Then the first woman said something I'll never forget. "I think he just likes feeling superior to her." I wish I could say I walked away immediately, but I didn't. I stood there frozen, pretending not to hear, while every insecurity I'd buried for years suddenly came crawling back to life. Then Ethan walked over smiling with a drink in his hand. And somehow, it got worse. One of the investors jokingly asked, "So, Ethan, if you ever retire early, is your wife ready to become the breadwinner?" Everybody laughed, and Ethan looked directly at me before saying, "She'd need about 3 lifetimes." The table exploded laughing. I felt my face burn instantly. But Ethan wasn't done. He wrapped an arm around me and added, "Good thing she married rich." More laughter. That was the exact moment something inside me changed, because suddenly I realized the person humiliating me most wasn't some stranger. It was my husband, and he enjoyed it. That car ride home was painfully silent. Ethan kept checking his phone while I stared out the window, trying not to cry. When we got home, I quietly asked, "Do you even respect me?" He looked genuinely confused. "What?" "You constantly embarrass me in front of people." Ethan sighed immediately, like I was exhausting him. Oh my God, not this again. That sentence hurt more than the jokes, because it meant he knew exactly what he was doing. I remember standing there in our kitchen feeling smaller than I'd ever felt in my life while the man I loved poured himself a drink like nothing happened. Then he said something that completely shattered me. "You're too emotional to survive in my world." My world, not our world. His. That's when I finally understood something terrifying. Ethan didn't see us as equals anymore. Maybe he never had. For the next few weeks, things felt different between us. Cold, disconnected. We barely spoke unless necessary. And honestly, part of me kept hoping he'd apologize. That one morning he'd wake up, look at me, and realize how badly he'd hurt me. But that never happened. Instead, things somehow got even worse. One Saturday morning, Ethan walked into the kitchen while I was making coffee and casually said, "I think we should separate." Just like that, like he was discussing weather. I remember actually laughing from shock. "You're serious?" "Yes." No hesitation, no emotion. Then he sat down across from me and said the sentence that changed everything. "I can't keep financially carrying someone forever." I physically stopped breathing for a second. Because after 10 years together, that's really how he saw me. A burden, not his wife, not his partner. A burden. And the crazy part? I almost believed him. That's what emotional humiliation does to people over time. It slowly rewires your self-worth. I spent the next few days walking around the house in complete shock while Ethan acted strangely calm about the entire thing. Too calm. Then the divorce paperwork arrived, and buried deep inside the documents was something almost unbelievable. Ethan wanted ownership of the house I paid for. Well, mostly paid for. See, there was something Ethan never knew. 3 years before we met, my grandfather passed away and left me a large inheritance. Not billionaire-level money, but enough to quietly buy property and invest carefully. My grandfather always told me, "Never tell people how much you have. Watch how they treat you first." So I stayed quiet, even after marrying Ethan, even after using my inheritance for the down payment on the house, even after secretly helping cover some of his financial mistakes years earlier. I never wanted money to become power in our relationship, but apparently Ethan already believed he had all the power anyway. And now, he wanted the house too. I forwarded everything to my lawyer immediately. 3 days later, we all met at a law office downtown. Ethan walked in confident, relaxed, like this was already over. Meanwhile, I felt physically sick. The lawyer started reviewing assets calmly. Cars, retirement accounts, savings, normal stuff. Then she reached the property documents, and suddenly, everything changed. She adjusted her glasses and said, "Actually, the home appears to be solely under her ownership." Silence, complete silence. Ethan blinked twice. "What?" The lawyer repeated herself. "The property was purchased primarily through inherited premarital funds. Legally, the home belongs exclusively to her." I swear I watched the color drain from his face in real time. "No," he said immediately. "That can't be right." But it was right, and suddenly the same man who spent years making me feel small looked completely lost. Then the lawyer continued speaking. "There's also documentation showing she paid approximately $73,000 toward your private debt obligations several years ago." Ethan slowly turned toward me, speechless. Actually, speechless. And for the first time in our entire marriage, I held all the power in the room. But weirdly, it didn't feel good. It just felt sad. because the man staring at me like a stranger was once the same man who used to bring me coffee at midnight and kiss my forehead before work. Somewhere along the way, money changed him. Or maybe success simply revealed who he already was. After the meeting ended, Ethan followed me into the parking garage. I could hear his footsteps echoing behind me. "Wait," he said quietly. I turned around slowly, and honestly, he looked terrified, not angry, not arrogant, terrified. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. I stared at him for a few seconds before answering honestly. Because I wanted someone to love me without money changing the way they saw me. That hit him hard. I could see it immediately. Then he whispered something I never expected to hear from him. "I messed this up." And for the first time in years, he sounded sincere. But sometimes people realize your value only after they destroy the relationship. And by then, it's already too late. Ethan looked at me and quietly asked, "Is there any chance we can fix this?" That question should have satisfied me. After years of humiliation, years of feeling invisible, I should have enjoyed watching him finally understand what he lost. But honestly, all I felt was exhausted. Because love shouldn't require someone to lose you before they finally respect you. I looked at him one last time and said, "You stopped being my safe place a long time ago." Then I got into my car. And as I drove away, I realized something strange. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel small anymore.